Hello, it's me again, Morbid Sleep.
The warming sun returns again and melts away the...
In the last video, we talked about Burzum and magic, and the relation of magic to pagan and modern Christian practices and beliefs. This video will focus more on Varg's personal beliefs. This is a very infamous topic, to say the least, but I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. So this is my to-do list for the video. So, Vikings. As discussed previously, Vikernes always felt more at home with the old Germanic gods than the version of Christianity available to him in 20th century Norway. Who can blame him, honestly? Jesus was literally just some guy, a hippie, and an alcoholic who hung out with a bunch of painfully regular working class dudes. There's no magic or romance to the stories of Jesus, and the cultural traditions of the Old Testament are, for lack of a better term, very Hebrew? Meanwhile, Norway's out here with a one-eyed father figure who has 2 pet ravens, a rainbow bridge to a super cool magic god city, chariots pulled by goats and cats, magic golden armbands, and foldable boats, and trolls, and dwarves, and epic heroes, and drama galore. Obviously, a young person is going to be more drawn to the flashy and relatable tales of excitement and adventure. The moral lessons aren't very different at their core, and like any timeless classic, each era can find new meaning in the same story that better fits contemporary beliefs. As well, the Aesir are more accessible and human than Jehovah. They take the form of human-like beings, and their powers are limited. It could even be said, within the framework of the narrative of Norse religion, that the Aesir were the new gods. Like the Greek Olympians, the Aesir had to defeat a generation of powerful beings in order to take their own place at the top of the ancient Scandinavian pecking order. That's inspirational, and it really fuels the imagination. It's stirring stuff, the language of conquerors and survivors. It's little wonder that wild Viking aesthetic totally dominated metal in the 80s. This affinity for the old gods absolutely fuels Vikernes' work as Burzum. Burzum is literally Vikernes bringing a half-remembered previous reality back to life. The songs are spells that return the listener to an imagined version of that past. Vikernes' real-life politics are the other side of that somewhat bittersweet and nostalgic coin. The pagan times were epic and fun, so what happened? What changed? Well, a lot of things. It's been over 1,000 years since Scandinavia resembled the world Vikernes is so fond of. Many things happened in Europe that have made it, and the continents Europe affected, the way it is today. The Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, colonization, and various political and economic systems like feudalism, monarchy, and capitalism have drastically altered European culture. But a big one that affects everything I just listed, of course, is Christianity. Back when Vikernes somehow was allowed to spread hateful lies on YouTube, I used to watch some of his videos. I actually probably watched a lot of his videos. Not to say that his videos aren't still out there, just it was a lot easier when they were all uploaded by one channel. But it's very relevant, the way he refers to Christianity and its presence in Europe. He considers it a foreign invading force, and equates it to the way extreme radical Islamist groups present Islam. He calls it a Jewish religion or a Middle Eastern religion. To him, it stamped out native European culture in any way it could, particularly with violence. In reality, the Christianization of Europe was much more complicated than all that. Although I would never deny that brutality, violence, threats, and extortion were not included in the ancient Christians' arsenal. What I will argue, however, is the notion that the European version of Christianity in any way resembles the pre-European contact version of Christianity, practiced immediately following Christ's death. Early Christians could barely even agree as to whether Gentiles could become Christian. So yeah, Christianity was a Jewish religion, insofar as it was invented by religious Jewish individuals under the framework of the Jewish religion. But as I mentioned in part 2, European Christianity was pretty much just a rebranding of native European paganism. Jewish Israelites did not purposely walk into Norway and start beating up Vikings until they converted. The apostles who are said to have done much of the initial converting worked mostly in places that would have been reasonable for them to travel to in that era, especially considering that by the time they started preaching the gospel away from home, they were a fair bit older. The apostles are said to have traveled in Africa, India, Greece, and Italy. At this time as well, the Jewish people all lived under the rule of Imperial Rome. Later, a Roman emperor was converted, and he, not any foreign missionary, made it the state religion in the year 380. The emperor did not suppress or attack other religions until much later in his reign. At this time, the Roman Empire controlled much of Western Europe, Turkey, Greece, and some Slavic nations, but none of Scandinavia. Scandinavia can hardly be said to have been Christianized until the 1000s, 700 years after Nicene Christianity was declared top dog by some Roman. No, Scandinavia was mostly converted by their own cultural neighbors, the Germans, Danes, and the French. Probably on a more individual level, Scandinavians were converted by their own countrymen. I do agree that the Christianization of Scandinavia made a lot less sense for the Scandinavians than it appears to have for the Greeks or the Italians. Roman society had bent Christianity to fit the social structure of Rome, but Scandinavia still hardly resembles even ancient Italy, let alone the modern metropolitan monolith of the major Italian cities, with of course the exception of Denmark. Being physically nearer to big urban centers, Denmark was the first and most enthusiastic Christian conversion. Thus, I think, as a concept, Vikernes is actually right about one thing, something that earned him 15 years in prison. He is right that the Christian religion fundamentally and irreversibly altered native Scandinavian culture. As one of the most recent conversions in Europe, the Sami of Scandinavia and Russia are even said to have barely been converted in the 18th century, and even now the Sami religion is still practiced in some places instead of Christianity. I think Scandinavians feel the least attached to this religion. While wars are fought as nearby as Ireland, over, among other things, which version of Christianity is more worthy, only 15% of Danes believe in a divine power. 12% of Danes and 9% of Swedes attend church once a month or more. Phil Zuckerman presents several possible reasons, none of which are the one I have presented, but these are not mutually exclusive. You can check these out. I'm gonna put links as well in the description to these. They're kind of old statistics, but you know, who's really running around running statistics on how many people believe in God? Actually, probably a lot of people. So I guess the moral of the story is don't tell people how to live their lives. You can explain your thing, you can even explain why you feel their thing is wrong, but don't manipulate or force them into stuff. That doesn't create a real conversion. That creates a superficial conversion, resulting in a lot more problems than victories. This video is getting a little bit long, so I'm gonna cut to the chase here. Paganism is very closely linked to nature, and in many cases can be called nature worship. Burzum's music, particularly from 1996 to now, is deeply religious. It is firmly rooted in his own spiritual beliefs. Albums like Daudi Baldurs explicitly reference Norse religion, and Filosofem explicitly frames his anti-Christian sentiments, and everything Vikernes has ever done since being released on parole is steeped in a love of nature. He currently lives on a bit of land in France with his wife and 50 bazillion children, living as sustainably and traditionally as they can in a post-industrial society.